here's how to know who is telling you something to believe about masks and who to ignore. Ignore everybody who says they definitely don't work. Ignore everybody who says they definitely do work. And pay attention to anybody who uses the following words: risk management, friction, water droplets, viral load. That's what you should listen for. People who talk in terms of risk management and viral loads and stuff know what they're talking about in terms of a rational way to look at the question. Doesn't mean they're right, but at least they're thinking right, even if they get the wrong answer. Half of the conversation about wearing masks is people telling you how they get out of it, right? How they cheated the process, or how they, put a little hole in their mask or something. So you know people are going to cheat. So probably you just can't have a situation where some people get to not wear masks, even if scientifically it makes perfect sense. Scientifically, it makes perfect sense. But socially, you just can't do it because too many people would cheat. Let's talk about masks and whether they work. First thing you need to know is, how would I know? How would I know? Am I a doctor? No. Have I studied masks used exactly the way they're being used for the pandemic? No, I have not. Have I done a deep dive on all of the research? No, I have not. But watch me have an opinion anyway. Here is the dumbest opinion, all right? The following opinion, if you hold this, is just stupid. I'll tell you why, but first I'll tell you it's stupid. Number one stupid opinion: masks do not work. That's just stupid. Number two stupid opinion: masks definitely work. Stupid. That's a stupid opinion. So the two stupid opinions, which you should not hold: masks definitely work and masks definitely don't work. Those two are stupid. All right? If you hold either of those opinions, I'm hoping that you will improve on those opinions. I mean, it's okay to have a preliminary opinion, but maybe you can shade it a little bit. All right? If you hear somebody saying, there's a video of a doctor saying that masks don't work and he only wears his mask to make people feel good, but that masks don't work. That's a stupid opinion. It comes from a doctor. But it's not less stupid, because it's stupid on the surface. And one of the examples that he used in his stupid opinion is that if you took a bunch of dirt and you threw it against a chain link fence, sure, some of the dirt wouldn't get through because it hit the chain part. But that so much of the dirt would go through the chain link fence, it would be as if the fence were not there for all practical purposes. What do you think of that opinion? Is that a wise opinion that maybe you agree with or you don't, but is it a rational, good thinking? No, it's not. It's not. Because the virus doesn't travel on its own, which is what the analogy of throwing dirt against the fence would imply. The analogy that should work is that the flea is on the dog and the dog is trying to get through the fence. In this case, the dog is the water particle. Can your water particles get through your mask? Well, why don't you test it? Hold your mask up to your face and sneeze. How much of the water got through the mask? Now sneeze without the mask. Does the same amount of water get through? No. Now take your mask and go up to a window and go and breathe on the window. Does the window get as fogged up as it would if you didn't have the mask on? No. Right? You don't have to be a scientist to know that the mask is stopping water particles. You can test it yourself. Literally, just walk up to a window and breathe on it with a mask and then without. Tell me if there's a difference. I think there will be, right? So if the water particles are clearly being limited by the mask, not stopped, but limited. If we know that the virus travels on the water particles, and we know the water particles are mostly getting stopped by the mask, you can test it yourself at home, what are the odds that the mask stops the water particles, but then the virus just flies off at the end and goes freelancing through the atmosphere? It's not a thing. As far as we know, it's not a thing. So here's how to know who to believe about masks. If somebody says, masks don't work, boom. Stop listening to them, they're stupid. If they say, no tests show you that masks work, stop listening to them and anything they ever say for the rest of their life. That's stupid. Now, it may be true that we do not have high-quality, randomized, controlled tests of masks specifically in this coronavirus context. That could be true, and probably is true. But that's not telling you anything about masks not working. It just means that we haven't studied it in this context, and it would be hard to study it because of ethical concerns, right? You couldn't put somebody without a mask around the virus because you'd be putting them in harm's way, and that's not cool for a test. Or at least you assume you might be putting them in harm's way. So here's how to know who is telling you something to believe about masks and who to ignore. Ignore everybody who says they definitely don't work. Ignore everybody who says they definitely do work. And pay attention to anybody who uses the following words: risk management, friction, water droplets, viral load. If you hear any of those words when somebody is saying pro or con masks, listen to them. Listen to them, because they know what they're talking about. Now, they could be wrong, and they could be right. In fact, two people could disagree and still be talking about all those things: water molecules, viral load, friction, risk management. All right? So that's what you should listen for. People who talk in terms of risk management and viral loads and stuff know what they're talking about in terms of a rational way to look at the question. Doesn't mean they're right, but at least they're thinking right, even if they get the wrong answer. Now, the other thing I get is, what about Dr. Fauci, who once said masks are not perfect protection? Somebody sent this to me just moments ago before I got on here, saying, look, Fauci himself, here he is, his own words, prior to saying the masks were important, he said it would be an illusion to think that masks are perfect protection. So was Fauci lying when he said masks are not perfect protection? Or is he lying now when he says masks are recommended? So which is it? Is one of those not true and the other is true? That masks are not perfect protection, that's what he said originally, and now he says you should wear them. Those are the same fucking thing. There's no difference. They're not perfect protection, but you should wear them. Do you know what else is not perfect protection? Your seat belt, but you should wear it. Do you know what is not perfect protection? The lock on your door, but you should still lock it. Somebody might try to get in through the window, but you should still lock the door. All right? So when Fauci said they're not perfect protection, he admitted later that it was in the context of hoping that people did not hoard the necessary limited stuff that the healthcare workers needed. Once he admitted that that was really what was behind it, then he took his earlier statement that they're not perfect protection, and he kind of put that in a different context, which is viral load, better than nothing, probably makes a difference. All right. What about the people who say, but Scott, how many times do I need to show you this graph of this certain state or this certain country? And here's the point where they introduced the masks, and look, infections still went up. So there's your proof that masks don't work, because the places that use them, they did not get better outcomes than the people who didn't. Scott, that's obvious. Mask here, mask there, same outcome. Proof. Right? No, that doesn't make any sense. The fact that you compared two places, one had masks and one didn't, and they got equal outcomes, proves nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if you think it did, why did you think that? Because there are so many things that are different about those any two areas that you don't know if it was the masks that made a difference or not. Now, where would be a place that you would have guaranteed required masks? What kind of a situation would have mask requirements? Well, I think it would be a place where they knew there would be a lot of virus problems. And so if they had a hotspot, they would of course say you better wear masks, because it would be even worse if you don't. So what would a hotspot look like if it was only, let's say, 90% as bad as it could have been, because they did wear masks? Well, it would look like not so good, because it's 90% as bad as it could have been. Maybe the masks made 10% difference. Would you know the difference? Because you don't know what it would have been. You only know what happened. You don't know what it would have been without the masks. And if you don't know that, you don't know anything. So to compare a place that had a hotspot, so of course they had masks, the correlation is hotspot causes masks. Right? That's the correlation. It's a hotspot, so that causes a mask requirement. Another place is not a hotspot so much, no mask requirement, but they also have infections, maybe because they don't wear masks. So if you had two places with the same outcomes, could you then declare that masks work or they don't? Nope. No. And if you think you can, then you don't know enough about how to analyze things and how to compare things properly. You just can't do that, because you don't know what would have happened for the same situation with no masks. You only know what did happen with masks. The reason that we rely on randomized controlled tests is because every other kind of test is misleading. You get that, right? The reason that there is a gold standard scientific test with randomized components and controlled, and you've got the base case you're comparing to. The reason you have to do all of that, and then you still have to repeat it, and you still have to have it peer-reviewed before you know anything, is because all of the other ways of looking at stuff are illusions. You think you're looking at something that means something, but you're not. Until you do the randomized controlled study, it's the only way you can know you're not being fooled by what you think is obvious, but the math doesn't support it. So that's my thing on masks. If you're convinced they work, definitely, totally, 100% work, that's stupid. If you're convinced they do not work, that's stupid. But if you think that there's a good risk management argument for them based on viral load and water vapor not going through masks entirely, I'd say that's a reasonable position even if you're wrong, right? Could you have a completely reasonable position that masks cause some friction and they should work, but then it turns out, someday we do some kind of randomized control study and we find out they didn't work? Would I be the dumb one in this argument? No. I would still be the smartest person in the argument, even wrong. Because that's how science works, right? You can be a very smart scientist, and then your experiment doesn't prove what you wanted it to, and then you're wrong. You could be the smartest person and also wrong. But you could be the dumbest person and accidentally get it right, because masks either work or they don't. So whichever side you're on, there are going to be a lot of dumb people agreeing with you, because there are only two sides. All right. That was way more on that topic than I needed to say, but I feel like this mask thing, it embarrasses me a little bit. It embarrasses me because the thinking about it is just so poor. Whatever the truth is, I'm just embarrassed at the thinking about it. Now, I saw that I think Rand Paul was suggesting that people who were immune to the virus should not have to wear masks. So let's say somebody got the 2 vaccinations and waited enough weeks for them to kick in, or somebody who already had the virus confirmed and they're recovered. What would be the problem with that? What would be the obvious problem of making everybody wear masks except those few people who know they're immune? What would be the problem? There's a big problem. The big problem is that people who do not have immunity would just say they did. They would just say they did. They just walk into the grocery store without a mask, and the manager would say, we require masks. And the person who just didn't want to wear a mask would say, oh yeah, I'm immune. I got my shots. I had COVID 3 weeks ago. I'm all good. As long as you can know with certainty that human beings are shitty people, and we will lie and we will cheat to get out of wearing a mask. I mean, half of the conversation about wearing masks is people telling you how they get out of it, right? How they cheated the process, or how they, put a little hole in their mask or something. So you know people are going to cheat. So probably you just can't have a situation where some people get to not wear masks, even if scientifically it makes perfect sense. Scientifically, it makes perfect sense. But socially, you just can't do it because too many people would cheat.